All right, let's dive in. We're about to take a whirlwind tour through centuries of absolute literary genius. We're going to meet the heavy hitters of English literature, the writers who didn't just tell amazing stories, but who literally reinvented the English language to do it.
I mean, think about that leap, right? From medieval pilgrims telling stories on horseback to the incredibly complex, beautiful, lyrical world of modern India. So how did we get from point A to point B? Well, the answer is this incredible story of rebellion, of revolution, and the constant evolution of how we see ourselves. Let's find out how it all went down.
So our first stop takes us all the way back to the 14th century. And you have to understand, back then, if you were writing something serious or artistic, you'd use French or Latin. English? That was seen as the language of the common folk, definitely not for high art. But one man was about to change all of that.
And that man, of course, is Geoffrey Chaucer. There's a reason we call him the father of English literature. He did something massive. He took Middle English, the language people actually spoke every day, and proved it could be a vehicle for pure genius. His masterpiece, The Canterbury Tales, wasn't just a book of stories. It was a radical statement that our language, the vernacular, was worthy of greatness.
And this really gets to the heart of what he did. See, Chaucer didn't just write about kings and queens. No, he gave us everybody. We get the rowdy bawdy miller, the uptight prioress, the totally corrupt pardoner. He gave us the whole shebang. By capturing all of society in its own language, he basically laid the foundation for every single English storyteller who came after him.
Okay, let's jump forward to the Elizabethan era. This was a period of just explosive creativity, where one towering figure built on Chaucer's foundation and took storytelling to a completely new place. Not across the country, but deep inside the human mind.
You know, before Shakespeare, plays were mostly about stuff happening outside of a character. Big battles, epic curses, political plots. But Shakespeare's game-changing move was to turn all that conflict inward. The real drama in Hamlet isn't just some revenge plot. It's the war that is raging inside Hamlet's own head. He made the messy, internal turmoil of his characters the absolute center of the story.
So how did he pull this off? Well, his secret weapon was the soliloquy. Think about to be or not to be. That's not just a guy talking to himself. It was a revolutionary technique, a direct pipeline into a character's soul, letting the audience see all their hidden fears, their desires, their doubts. It completely changed the game for character development, making these people on stage feel, well, real.
Okay, buckle up, because we're about to fly through 2 centuries of massive, massive change. We're going to see writers go from celebrating pure logic and reason to embracing raw, untamed emotion, and then finally, to staring down the harsh realities of a brand new industrial world.
This timeline really maps out some wild swings. We start with a guy like Alexander Pope, the master of the Enlightenment, who believed in order, wit, and pure reason above all else. Then, in a complete 180, the pendulum swings hard the other way to the Romantics. With folks like William Wordsworth, literature ditched the city and the mind and ran for the hills, championing wild nature and what he called the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. And then, we land with a thud in the smoggy cities of the Victorian era, with Charles Dickens, who picked up the novel and used it like a weapon for social change.
But hang on, to really get the full picture here, we have to make one quick pit stop just before this timeline. And there we find the metaphysical poets, led by the absolute genius John Donne. He did something no one else was doing. He fused intense, passionate emotion with these rigorous, almost scientific arguments. It was totally brainy and deeply heartfelt all at the same time.
And his signature move was this wild thing called the metaphysical conceit. This wasn't your simple love is like a red rose metaphor. Oh no, this was an extended, totally surprising, and intellectually demanding comparison. I mean, in one of his most famous poems, he compares 2 lovers' souls to the legs of a drawing compass. It's weird, it's brilliant, and it's that fusion of passion and logic that made his work so groundbreaking.
Okay, so let's get back to that timeline and land with a bang in Victorian England with Charles Dickens. Dickens basically became the conscience of the nation. He looked around and saw the brutal injustices of the Industrial Revolution, the poverty, the awful child labor, the broken legal system, and he put it all front and center in his huge, sprawling novels like Bleak House. He turned popular entertainment into a powerful engine for social change.
And then, everything breaks. We hit the 20th century, and after the trauma of World War I and the shocking new ideas of people like Freud, writers started to feel like the old, neat, tidy ways of telling stories just didn't work anymore. They couldn't capture the chaotic, fragmented feeling of the modern world.
And one of the key revolutionaries here was Virginia Woolf. She basically decided that traditional plots, with a neat beginning, middle, and end, were a lie. Real life, she said, isn't a straight line. It's a constant, messy, chaotic flow of thoughts, memories, and little sensations. Her goal was to capture the mind in the very act of thinking.
So, her main tool for this was the stream of consciousness. In a novel like Mrs. Dalloway, which unfolds over a single day, the plot isn't about what she does. It's about the endless river of her thoughts, moment by moment. It was a radical attempt to put the actual subjective experience of being alive onto the page.
And trust me, this feeling of being broken, of everything being in fragments, it was in the air. This incredibly famous line from T.S. Eliot's poem, The Wasteland, just perfectly captures that modernist vibe. It's the sense that civilization itself is in ruins, and all we can do is pick up the broken pieces and try to make some kind of meaning out of them. So, here's where the story takes a really fascinating turn. As the British Empire started to dissolve, the English language didn't shrink back. Just the opposite. It was picked up, wrestled with, and totally transformed by writers all over the globe, creating brand new kinds of literature, especially in places like post-colonial India.
You can really feel the central problem in this quote from the writer Raja Rao. He's asking the big question: how can you possibly use the language of your colonizer to express a reality, a culture, a spirit that is uniquely your own? How do you make English speak Indian?
Well, maybe the most explosive answer to that question came from Salman Rushdie. With his novel Midnight's Children, he didn't just write in English, he took it apart and rebuilt it. He created what some people call a chutnified English, this vibrant, spicy, energetic mix of formal Queen's English with the slang, the rhythms, and the words of the Indian subcontinent. He basically decolonized the language from the inside out.
And the technique he used to pull this off is called magic realism. So in Midnight's Children, the hero is born at the exact moment of India's independence, and he's telepathically linked to all the other children born in that first hour. By blending these fantastical elements with real history, Rushdie was able to suggest that the story of a new nation is itself a kind of grand, chaotic collective fiction.
And Mist's legacy of a new, remixed, global English didn't stop there. You see it beautifully in writers like Arundhati Roy. Her incredible novel, The God of Small Things, uses this unique, almost poetic prose to tell a story that's both deeply personal and intensely political. It's all about a forbidden love that breaks India's rigid social taboos, which she calls the love laws.
So why does any of this matter? Why take this tour? Well, the crucial point is that this isn't just some dusty old history lesson. The innovations these authors came up with have a direct, powerful impact on how we tell stories today, whether it's in a book, a movie, or even a TV show.
Think about it. Chaucer proved that everyday language could be high art. Shakespeare gave us psychological depth. That's in every complex character you love on screen. Dickens showed us that stories could be a powerful tool to critique society. The modernists taught us how to tell stories about our inner lives. And writers like Rushdie showed us how language itself can bend and mix to reflect our global world. These aren't just old literary techniques. They're the fundamental tools we use to understand ourselves.
And that leaves us with one final big question. Every one of these writers managed to capture something essential about their time and pushed language forward to do it. So, who's doing that today? Who are the innovators transforming our language right now to tell the urgent stories of the 21st century? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.